And today it went all over the place, but it's working, so that's what matters. Hi everyone, and welcome to yet another Unboxing Design Systems here from the crew at Friends of Figma Portugal.
My
My name is Bruno, I'm here with Raquel and Marcelo, and we're about to start. So let's see how this goes. And the music just kind of abruptly turned off for the people outside, so they didn't really knew. So maybe Raquel and Marcelo, you guys can present yourselves first.
Yes, I'm not sure if it's too late to wish a Happy New Year, but Happy New Year. Maybe it's too late, but we can decide either way. So at the moment, I'm doing design operations at Volkswagen Digital Solution, more specifically to MAN Truck and Bus. And yeah, basically that's it. And now I can pass to Marcel.
Hello guys, Happy New Year. I'm not going to be behind us. So my name is Marcelo. I am currently working for Dentsu, marketing agency, as a senior experience designer. A little bit more focused on UX than UI, but let's try not to be too on UI on this. And now Bruno, do you want to present yourself?
Yeah, because you also deserve it.
I might be quiet because apparently there's feedback on my voice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give everyone just five minutes because we need to do rearrange here and be right back. Give me a second, guys. We'll be right back. Okay, I would love some feedback on what you guys are actually capturing back or not. That would be amazing. So if you can drop a message on the chat just telling us if there's feedback or not, that would be amazing.
Yes.
We don't know who is live, but I think some people are, so let us know.
Thank you for being a great audience.
Exactly. And waiting for the technical difficulties of this very amateur. Woohoo, all good, sounds good, nice. Okay, so to finalize introductions, and sorry again for that, my name is Bruno, I'm a lead designer at OutSystems. I work mostly as a brand designer, but I'm also one of the leaders here at Friends of Figma Portugal. I started the chapter back in 2020 with a friend, Flavio, who's not in the group anymore. Probably out somewhere with his van. Apparently, by the way, fun fact, he showed up in a music video this week from Gandim with Ana Bacalhau, and I was looking at it, and all of a sudden he shows up.
Great Flavio.
So we might share the Gandim video clip for everyone to just have fun, and no one tell Flavio that I said this in the live stream. Okay, today, before we start, just a couple of reminders of things to come. First things first, don't forget, Config is on its way. It's June 24, 26 and 27, sorry about that. If you guys have the capacity to join, I think tickets are still on sale, I'm not sure. But in anyway, if you can't join physically, online is free. You can see all the talks. Don't forget that. And actually, closer to home, we have ENED, the National Design Students Encounter that's going to happen here in Portugal in 23, 24, and 25th of March. And this year, Friends of Figma is going to be there. It's going to be me and Rita from our team. So I invite you guys if you want to join. ENED is coming. Plus, we do have a date for Layers 2024, but we'll announce that later. Okay, with all of that out of the road, maybe you can talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today, Raquel.
Yeah, so today we're basically going to explore and admire some of the pages of inside of the Gitlab design system, which is Pajamas, which big kudos to the name, by the way, because even though Pajamas seems like sloppy or, that you're very comfortable, the design system itself seems very organized. So maybe the message is to show that you get so comfortable inside it that the same experience as you were using Pajamas. I don't know how would be the brainstorm of the name, but I thought it could be a good logic behind it. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll only know if someone from the GitLab team shows up and goes like, "No, you guys are wrong."
Yeah.
If they don't show up, we can trash talk all we want, more or less.
Yeah.
But let's see. Let's see
Yeah.
who's coming and who's not. And as always, guys, don't be afraid to drop your questions on the chat. We're here to talk with you. We're here to also answer your questions, not just showcase things. So whatever you have, let us know, and we'll just say right back, and we can have a good chat here. Okay, with everything in mind, and I hope you guys are ready. Time to go. So let's go. First things first, let's check out Pajamas GitLab design system documentation website. So Raquel, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so the first thing that come into my mind when I saw the homepage is that you get a lot of feeling about a spirit of contribution and collaboration, which is something that for me is quite a huge conquer for a design system, especially on the brand so well known, because you have to imagine how much context they might have from externals. Not only internally, they have to be aligned, but also to deal with the whole world, basically engaging and reach out to them. And it's already the third section of their own page. So they're kind of like, okay, let's go for it. We actually advocate for you to ask things. And then for that, like, okay, you can talk with us, of course, but then you have guidelines on how to contribute and to ask things. And then you have also a design system issue tracker, which their repository regarding that topics. Maybe you can open that link on the third section when you have, yeah, you can open that one and you can see like a lot of tags, which is amazing. And you can see all the diversity of requests. And I was wondering like, wow, this must be amazing to work on a company to see all of these requests and don't be overwhelming. Like, where should I start? Because it must be already so integrated in their culture that they have to be very aligned for what I imagine. What do you think about it? I think it's very interesting.
It's interesting, although I am a little bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's quite busy, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of information going on, so I feel like, yes, I get it, but at the same time, slow down a little bit, or at least like reduce the number of text to like with an expand or something. But that's me. I'm a brand guy. I like less. I know that these type of experiences are great, and we need these. But at the same time, it's kind of like it's freaking me out a little bit because there's so many things happening on the UI. So I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm curious about how many type of issues or from each type of person might do an issue. Will be a design to do an issue here on GitLab. That would be very interesting for me because usually designers go like, that's code repository. That's not of my thing. But I'm always supportive to be more dev friendly. So in case a designer go here and open an issue, from me would be like, whoa, that's a big step. Sorry, Marcel, I think you were sharing something.
I kind of forgot what I was saying. I was just like trying to understand the ticketing here. They're a lot related to dev. So they're not, there's a lot of requests from devs that I can understand in here, like exemplifications and guidelines, probably for development.
Yeah.
But just connecting to what you were saying at the beginning, I think like for a company to have this kind of maturity, it's not like a down to top decision. It's not like the product designers that decides to do that. It has like a very involvement from the management. There's a lot of budget going on probably. So it's like the way that the company approaches the design that is different. I don't think that a lot of companies are going to have the same approach.
Yeah. So that's
with
the spirit as well.
With GitLab and even GitHub, like you're by default focused on this open communication type of nature, right? Like your product is built for this. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's more natural.
Even if it wasn't a big team, or even if it was a little bit smaller, because the nature of their product is this, it feels like it's just it's just a continuation of what they do. But it's cool.
Exactly.
Like it's great to see that they actually have a board for issues for this and everything. Like that's fun. And also between the documentation site and the functional like GitLab site, the system is already working because the language feels like the same. So design wise, we're already seeing consistency, which is nice.
Yeah. So even the repository to request things, it's already consistent. So it's like an example, of how design system of their working. So it's very interesting for me, yeah. And they also, if you go back, they also have the guidelines of requesting. So they probably, I don't know, maybe for some reason, if we do a dummy request now, probably they will, whether or not accept it, or they have some criteria or something. So
let's check if
already...
the connection is secure. I need to have a GitLab account. I don't have a GitLab account. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
But they probably filter, or you should have like some acceptance criteria, perhaps, so they don't get overwhelmed, because around the world, for sure, they will have like multiple, and even cultural differences. Maybe from States or Europe, you will do a ticket in a very different way, which would be interesting. So they probably have already that kind of dilemmas, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought it was very interesting to be that open and to be right at front of the homepage. Like, no, let's go for it. You can contribute like this, and that, and go here. So it's very strong, and they have to be very confident, I think, to do that.
For sure.
That was my big impression of their homepage.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna just kill this and come here and start maybe navigating a little bit. So we get a very simple homepage that it's actually not the overview or anything like that. There's this section on the left. You have brand and you have product. Homepage is more like a jumping point for those. Having the search over here right at the start feels like a great practice. A lot of these websites actually don't have search, which is always annoying.
That's true.
Especially when we're doing these streams and we get here and it's like, nah, you're not gonna get it. But it's fun. And then, for example, see the overview, and it's proper brand overview with principles, tone of voice, resources, quite clean, simple documentation led, which makes sense for GitLab.
Yeah, simple but solid, and also made me feel that this is a design system that is not only for internals but externals. So not only us here just doing this randomly can access here, but they also use it internally because they have links that only internals can use.
Yeah,
they use the same, but they use the same pages. So it's very interesting as well, because I know that sometimes they do separate publications, or so it's interesting.
No, it makes
sense. And also this one is very marketing friendly as well. The brand.
This type of elements, the way like color distribution, which is one of the... I love these graphics as a brand designer because not many people do that.
Yeah.
So it kind of just gives you a quick awareness, but like I think it's cool. It's interesting to see the whole thing like really simply laid out. And again, what I like more about the documentation on the right side rather than the navigation and things like that is the fact that it literally feels like you're opening a very clean, I don't know, Notion document or something like that. There's nothing like overly branded, overly whatever. It's just simple documentation, easy to follow, clean, with great structure. So and then we have product, right? So let's see what we have on the get started section, which is always fun.
This page was actually very interesting for me because even though that it's supposed to be super obvious, they explain the categories that they have inside. It is something that is so simple, but sometimes it would be so useful to have in all design systems, because, for instance, content may be different from you or from me. For instance, content could be, I don't know, photographies or whatever, but they explain what content means here inside of the organization. And it was just so simple, and I thought it was so useful to explain exactly what it is, each category, okay, they explain exactly which category that we will find. And it's such a simple act.
And even because like this name convention, it differs a lot from company to company, from person to person, so having this, okay, guys, we're working with those guidelines. So this is what we mean when we say usability, And they're very concise too, so they don't along the test too much. So they're just like
So just to be clear, our content means this, or object means that. Because, for instance, objects for me, I wouldn't even know what it is if I didn't read it here, for instance. It's a very specific nomenclature that I found it here, but it was interesting to see, okay, now I know what
you
it is.
totally have your own like mental model, but
Yeah,
you're not sure if we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that point, we already seen this with all the other design systems that we've been looking at here. That communication of shared standards is like critical for you to actually understand what you're getting into. And again, these are big design systems, and being internal or external, if you're a new designer approaching this and knowing that you have to work within this type of universe, these pages might seem simple, but they are essential for that kickoff, right? Like, it's your first week and you still don't know what you're going to be doing, and you immediately get the lay of the land, you get some details on language used by the company, which here I feel like the language is very broad, but we saw design systems like the Atlassian one, for example, where it was not at all that broad, right? Like, it was very specific to their universe, their reality, and it was super interesting to see how it got us also confused when building, right? So it's fun to see this type of pages.
Yeah, I totally agreed. And I think it also shows that even though they might be very mature regarding design, that they're also friendly for people that are not have that type of knowledge. So they have to think abroad, like for juniors to seniors. I also had that feeling, at least, which is nice.
Yeah, and I also like, again, same thing as the overview, the homepage with the link for the issues and everything. The fact that they have a get started that starts with context setting and then contribution, which is core to the way that they work because they are open source, and only then they go to principles and all the other stuff. I remember when we were doing Apple, they also had a different flow than most websites, because a lot of these websites, although they had this at the top, they kind of jump immediately into components and everything. But having this in their navigation tells you also how they kind of think a little bit, so it's fun to see.
Yeah, and of course they have the principles, which is something that is natural when you have a more mature design, which is very related to the brand principles, actually. So you can see the consistency regarding how much this is a reflection of how they are, right? So the other one that I find very interesting, at least even for me, because I'm doing some teaching regarding design systems, and I found out about this component lifecycle, which was also inspiration for me, which is the next page, because they show very openly how is the lifecycle of their component, and I don't see this often. So they show their process, and it's really interesting. They even show it on a Figma file, and you can promote it or spread it. And they explain each phase of it, even though it might be like too obvious, like if it like a product design approach of building something. I think it was really interesting for them to explain how they build a component. Yeah, it's very nice. They have like four big main steps, I think. Yeah.
When I try to make it big, it just kind of breaks
okay.
the
but you have
flow. But I can do this. I can click on the link and open it.
Okay, yeah. But it's very interesting for those who are wondering, like, how can we, define a life cycle of the components? Like, it's not just receive it and do it and that's it. I think this could be a very good inspiration on how to at least define the basics of the process, because it's very interesting. They show up every step in a very general way. Of course, probably internally they would have more documentation. But I think it's define, design it, build, and integrate. And yeah, I think it's very interesting.
Isn't it weird that they don't have testing?
It's a good point. Probably it's inside of builds, but it's a good question.
I was looking for it, but I didn't really find it.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. But in any case, maybe the thing is here is when if you got to the point where you're offering a component to be added to the system, then you're probably already went through the process of doing user testing or playing with stuff. You confirm that it's going to be added, and only then it goes through this process. One thing that I don't see here, that I never see anywhere, and I would love to see. It's not the it's not the building, the definition, the integration. It's the how to kill it,
Release
right? Like
them.
no, the opposite. Like once the item, once the component is no longer necessary, or your system evolved beyond that component, because some components actually test well, but then they actually don't really bring value to the conversation.
So how die?
Yeah. How do you kill a component?
Okay.
How do you do that process of like turning it down, right? Like that's something that I really struggle with when I think about these systems and these things. But
that's also a good point. Yeah, that's also a good point, because I think we naturally just take it off and that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Point.
But like if someone was actually using it for something, but it's just like that one guy that has built a very interesting back office tool, but actually it doesn't really need to be in a system because it's a one-off thing, then how do you decouple a component and kill it and don't break the system for someone who's using it? I never see that one. So when I look at this cycle of component lifecycle here, the only thing that I would love to see is also like that. How to decouple our components, how to move out of this. That would be fun.
Yeah.
But
Even though when it's just a one case scenario, sorry, Marcel, I have a slightly delay, so sorry. When we have one case scenario, I think we consider as a snowflake. So usually you don't consider right away to apply it on the design system. But it's also another question that we might have here, like how can GitLab assure or has like a number, like at least 5 designers need this, or how will be the metrics to consider that is not a snowflake and therefore it won't be a dying component in the future. But even for instance 10 people use it now, but in 1 year it's not using it because they're using another thing, how they die, how they take off those. So it's also interesting, that question, Bruno. Go ahead, Marcel, sorry.
No, like I was trying to imagine like how, okay, they don't have it documented, but how would you do it? Like how would you kill a component, like for this, like for open design system like that? As you said, like it could be like we're not using this, like the system evolved and we're not using this component, but it could be like this guy which is using this component or whatever. Maybe we can just update it and we tell the guy, okay, so this is what happens when you update it, and if you update, you no longer have this component anymore, and the guy can choose between updating or not updating. But I feel like I struggle to imagine how would you kill just, like just remove the component.
Yeah. Maybe perhaps they also, in case they have all set up, because at least for me, I still don't trust 100%, but you have also Figma Analytics, which is tell you like how many times the components are detached or not used. So maybe they could use that type of metrics, or even on Storybook or the repository, they can see how many times people, use it. But even still, on this dimension, it's probably a full time for someone, for sure.
And honestly, we're thinking as designers when we say stuff like that, because if you think about the components and use Figma as the point of reference, it is just for designers that it is the point of reference, right? So for everyone else, maybe they actually see lack of implementation of component in the products and things like that. So it's fun. We already have two comments here with questions from Milena Silva. One of them is if we know Storybook. They've used it as a component library to work between Figma and Framer. We use it to work as a designer directly with devs. Yes, we've seen Storybook also used by a lot of these companies, but GitHub and Gitlab specifically, for example, are two companies who usually don't use it because their whole product is already code-based, so usually it's not a common use case that we see them use. But a lot of other companies do it. And then the other one is, do we normally work with Atomic Design or CDD? Which I'm going to ask because I really don't know what is CDD.
Yeah, I was also wondering if you would know.
CDD.
Component, I don't know, design something, maybe?
Elena, if you could enlighten us, that would be amazing.
Component-driven development. I guess.
Ah, good one.
Ooh.
Good one. That would be good.
I never heard of it, honestly. But I also don't think, for example, we work with atomic design in a sense that we evolved the language and the way that we build things beyond that point. I feel like the concepts around component-driven development, exactly. I think the stuff that we do, especially at OutSystems and everything, tends to be, we don't use the language of atomic design, but we use some of the structure of atomic design. Stuff like layouts of pages, for example, we're starting to implement them now, but before in the past there was a lot of freedom to build how you wanted, just the components, so there wasn't the concept of layouts, for example, so maybe it was more component driven, but yeah.
Good. Good. You caught up, Marcel.
Yeah.
Component driven development. Good. You're good at this. At this one.
No, I'm good. I'm good at searching at Google.
Helena is saying that CDD is used more there in Spain than Atomic. So that was it. And then
okay.
Gonzalo Diaz said maybe have some kind of versioning system for components and regular change logs to announce when they deprecate a component. We've seen that, and we talked about it a while, especially on the Figma side. I talked about also, if you let me just.
They also have it here, by the way. I found out that Gitlabs also mentioned that they use version history on Figma and branches on Figma, which was great because I never see any design system that says that. So it's great. I thought, someone is using actually this feature because
so
it's a very good feature, but I don't see much people using it. I think, when you have it there, they explain it that they have version histories and they have
Figma
also...
file will summarize all updates with notes on working changes. You know, I always feel like this is very interesting because I'm going to switch to Figma really fast. There's this plugin that was built by Rui from my team that has been used by a lot of these teams that uses the version history, because we use version history for our design systems to do exactly that. We use versioning and we do documentation on the tool. And then we use a Slack integration to have a channel that works as a changelog where we just run the plugin to send all the latest updates so that everyone keeps getting notifications. So it's a tool for communication, but it's simple enough so that like you don't really have to overthink it. And I feel like many times this is the type of things that we don't do as much, but it could probably help. It's better for bigger teams, of course. Smaller teams might not need it, but using version history and using this plugin has been an excellent practice from what we can see.
That's great. Unless your company don't allow it due to security stuff, but hopefully you're working in a company that doesn't have that kind of restriction, so feel free to use it. I think it's a great plugin. But I also found it this version history. They actually said that they use it, and I think it's great. And I really advocate for people to use it more on Figma because it's such a simple thing, like a bigger autosave, but it gives you so much power of having multiple releases inside of a file. How many of you probably see like version 1, versions 2, version 3 inside of the file, and then the file gets so big you can even not, use it properly. And with this thing, it's amazing. So it's actually interesting. I thought even that we might get to see it because we did a duplicate, but of course the version history doesn't appear on duplicate.
Of course,
but I was intrigued on how they do it.
And the way that they do the release notes, this is basically how we also
they
do
are probably kings of it, right? Because it's very natural for them.
But like one of the things that I feel like a lot of us, when we start doing this, also struggle with is what we considered a major update versus a smaller update. What is a .1 or a .1.01 or something like that?
This is also something that I'm always learning about. Because I think each person or each company might define this in a different way. So it's very curious on how people do it.
And last but not least, in this section, I also love the fact that they have a roadmap. Like, they don't have it, but they intend to have it, so that's fine. And they also have this thing where it's a category direction design system, and apparently this is where they see like the longevity.
They have so much thing public, it's insane. They have everything public. It's really amazing. It's the ones you start to dig in, they're kind of like, you can see everything that they have, all the documentation.
Cool.
It's really weird.
Okay, there's a lot of stuff here. It's already 6:11. We've been at it a while on the website. We can do a little like quick flyby about the other stuff. They have documentation on how to understand components, what libraries they have, how to use annotations. Although there's some really cool things coming out of it soon when it comes to annotations in Figma.
Well,
And I can't say more. Sorry about that. Sharing files and prototypes, and then breaking changes, things that break. Deprecation. There you go.
Deprecation. We found that.
It exists. It's not in the
Ta-da.
life cycle, but they actually have. Okay.
aha! I haven't found this earlier, so it's
Interesting.
good.
So
Okay.
they actually have thought about deprecation, which is super interesting. But actually, I still feel like this is like focused on branches, although it also talks about styles. So deprecated pages, component configuration, and deprecated
okay.
how to use this component. Interesting.
But I
So
think
the-
they have it on the Figma file. You will see it later because I saw this at
I
glance.
saw
Like
some.
now
Okay.
it's this. It's the dying components. It will be there.
Nice. And then they have the resources, and only then you actually start going into the foundations where you have definition of tokens, that is
Yeah.
basically code tokens, colors, and how these colors work. And Elena, Storybook is here actually. So they actually also use
Yeah, yeah.
Storybook. You can see here Storybook integrations, which is interesting. And then typography. All of it is like really well done. Markdown, which is kind of a very developer-y thing to use, but it's a super
Yeah.
interesting tool because Markdown is a speed up for anyone who's building content, right? So if you ever want to like learn how to write blog posts or articles, just learn how to use Markdown, and you can write really fast and format really fast. It helps a lot. So having this is super cool. And then there's spacing, layout, elevation, which is always fun.
Yeah, elevation itself. It's a nomenclature that sometimes I get elevation. Oh, okay, it's shadows. Okay. It's really interesting to call it elevation. I get it, but it's still not a thing for me.
Well, elevation
Yeah.
comes from the Google material design original,
Yeah,
right? Like
I
when they did the whole first studies on how shadows work, they called it elevation because they assumed that it has to do with the position on a z-axis rather than it's a nice shadow. No, like shadows have means that something is above or below. So the elevation of the object makes sense, but at the same time, it's fun to see.
Yeah.
Motion, which is rare, but it's cool to see that we have stuff like
it was
motion.
also
But
interesting.
if you see,
To
to-do,
do.
had. So there's a lot of to-dos here, clearly.
Yeah.
Iconography, which talks about the collections, illustrations, and then you get into components, which have all the classics.
Yes, we can dig
What's a
in
sock?
on the demo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently a sock... Socks is a fun joke that I have here, apparently. Socks represent a
Hopefully.
unique way to harm your feet. When to use: if you need puppets in a pinch, to create separation between your feet and your shoes, to show off your quirky personality, to walk around the
This is
house without
amazing.
waking up anyone. I love this one, but it's cool to see
To do ad
this type of
appearance.
stuff. This is the type of things that reminds me. For example, I don't know if you guys ever seen the demo from Netflix. Design system. I think it was one of the configs or schemas, and they said, "Oh, when we are bored, we actually have like swords from all our shows and movies to like do swords fight."
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Um.
In case there's some design tokens geek out there, just wanted to give the reference that when you visit the design tokens, you have the documentation, but only on the GitLab. In case you haven't seen it, the link, but they have it all on the GitLab, not here, which was also interesting.
Elena said, "I don't understand the organization because it's not alphabetic." Well, the organization is alphabetic in the components because components really like there's no component that most likely is like more important than everything else. But for example, if you look at the organization under get started, it has to do with cycle of development, I would say. At least that's how that's how we do it also. Like you focus on like what's the simplest things and you go add up into the more complex things. So foundations, then you go to components, then patterns, and then objects, data visualization.
But there's also some design systems that were organized by categories, like behavior categories, for instance, or even product or business categories for some reason. So it's also something that you can see inside of, besides of alphabetic. So I think it really depends on the quantity and how is natural inside of the company. But alphabetic, I think, could be more easy as well, in case they're all similar regarding the importance. Yeah.
And then the only thing that I don't agree is having accessibility and content at the bottom. Honestly, it's the type of stuff that I usually assume that should be closer to the beginning, because there's a lot of these things that are given they are not exactly post thinking, but they are almost always put at the bottom of these things, which it tells me that although they care about it, they organizationally wise, it's still like last.
It's not a priority, right?
Yeah.
But even on the content, they have so many things that I also give a big kudos, because they have a ton of voices, how to use verbs, and they have quite a mature content as well. The similar that I found out was on material. So
yeah, for me, it just makes me kind of wonder, why would content be so down low and accessibility? Mostly because without content, we really can't do anything. So
yeah.
Okay, we've kind of browsed their website. There's a lot of cool stuff here. We saw a lot of their documentation, but now we really need to jump into Figma, because we still need to have time to build something. So that's what I'm gonna do. First things first, just letting everyone know that if you ever want to access the stuff from GitLab on the community, you just need to find the GitLab product design profile. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat so you can just jump in. They have their own component library, product icons. They have the Figma for GitLab.
Can you show that one, that one and the accessibility blue lines, because it's actually interesting.
Annotation tools for content and behavior. So it's the type of if we go back to the browser on the accessibility, they actually had that on the overview or the visual. Where was it? Semantics and content. I saw it. Where was it? Oh, here it is. Like focus order and things like that. So it's the tools that they use to represent this type of stuff.
I was aware that they had the Figma file to illustrate this. This is quite cool.
It's interesting because it's one of those things that it's understandable, but it's hard to do, mostly because you don't really have a way to, like, in Figma, represent a lot of these details. So
this
but
is
for
quite
example,
nice.
representation wise it's harder, but function wise, I don't know how it is, but Figma was playing around with tab order. It already works when you're designing. For example, if you're using an auto layout, the tab will jump on the elements according to their hierarchy on the document. So they actually follow the layers, therefore they follow the order of the auto layout, and they go like up and down very quickly. Prototype wise, I think that's still not a thing, but they are working on it. And again, outside of this, we have also the Figma for GitLab, which is guide how we use Figma at GitLab. So this is like the extension of the documentation that you just saw.
Like an onboarding.
Yeah.
Right? That's amazing. Yeah.
So it's kind of a simplified onboarding directly in Figma, which, let's be honest, developers will not want to leave GitLab, so designers will not want to leave Figma, so they kind of like, we know. But now it's time to jump into the file, and maybe Raquel, you lead the way because you were the one who prepared this. So I'm just gonna start following you.
Yeah. So as you can see, for instance, the alert was deprecated. I'm sorry. So as you can see, it's here on the bottom. So it's interesting because if they but they have a new one. So this one, interesting. How would they manage the name of this new? They changed the name. I'm not sure if you follow my question, because I thought we have alert here that it was gone, but then we have also a new alert on the top.
There you go.
So it's interesting. How do they manage the name on publications? But I think Figma, even though you have the same name, he will also consider a different component, even though they have the same name. So yeah, probably that's how they do it.
It's
But
probably
the other one has the
version.
deprecated one.
It's most likely deprecated because it's a version of the designed component that was deprecated, not really the component itself, right? So they updated the component, but they did 2 pages so that they wouldn't break the old component, and they created then a new one. This could have been done using stuff like branches and things like that, but maybe there was something in the build of it that they needed to actually keep so that people wouldn't really be mad if something broke, I guess. So that makes sense. So
it was in their documentation. They said that they're going to keep the deprecated one in the bottom of the file until a certain specific amount of time.
There you go.
Probably because people are also switching, right? Because you also that pain about switching components. So probably that's it. But it's interesting to see it, like how they manage that problem. Yeah. So I think regarding the structure itself, it's very easy to understand. For instance, this one alert, you have just, a variant and the title, and it seems very easy, at least when we are comparing, for instance, the Atlassian, it was quite geeky, but I think this one is actually easy to use. And it's interesting to see the formula. Sometimes you have as title or has actions or just put it variant. This one didn't even have a name. So yeah, let's see another one, for instance, banner.
Is it work with auto layout?
Good one. I think so. Yeah, when we put it, the mouse, you can see that it has auto layout. So it's quite nice. Yeah, it has auto layout.
There's some of them like this one that I'm trying here. Like I got it from here, but they're not quite.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if they have like a fixed size or something like this.
Yeah, weird, because it should be, or maybe we don't have the font, but that shouldn't break that much, right, Bruno? Yeah. Okay, interesting. Maybe we can start to explore a little bit. Also, the date picker is interesting to me to see how they managed to do it, because it's also tricky to do it.
Tricky one.
Yeah, but apparently they just divide first. They do it in a very atomic design, for instance, I think. So the date, and then you have the labels, and then afterwards you have the other one, right? And then
it's weird this stage that they have the selected one, they have the hovered one, but they don't have the in-between one, when you select this date and the last one.
Yeah. And also, some of them don't have auto layout updated, so it's interesting. Yeah, it's not the first design system that we saw that some of the components are not built 100% the same way, and it's very interesting. Like, probably there's too much people doing it, so each of them will do it on their own, and they should probably just respect 1 or 2 basic rules to be launched, and that's it. It's quite interesting. And they have a lot of links. But what's your opinion regarding having a component as a link? Because I have it on 2 ways. You can have it as a text line or as a component itself. Do you see it as a component or just a text possibilities? Text line.
We treat them as 2 different things, but we usually don't really create components for inline links. Inline links are styles, or a conjugation of styles usually, right? Like because even when we're building, when we're building, it doesn't really help if you can't properly produce. So if a link usually, if we need, is like if it has something more than text, icons or anything like that, we do that. So it's like these are almost buttons rather than baseline links, but it's always interesting to see.
Yeah, and also from a good practice point of view, the tertiary link, the tertiary button should pretty much look like a link, but with the padding a little bit bigger, like for clickability, mostly for accessibility issues also. And
let's see what they have.
That's weird because their tertiary link is just a plain text.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. They have a lot of buttons.
Yeah, they have a lot of variations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering with you guys, what do you think about having all the states on the Figma side, like
Mm-hmm.
a focus over disabled and so on? Do you think that it's worth it to have on Figma because it's more dev friendly, or do you think that should only live in outside, for instance, a storybook that illustrates all the interactions? It's also a good
We
question to put.
like to have it on Figma, but for example, focus. You don't really need a different variant focus since it's the line around the object. You can
Yeah,
literally use a property, so
Yeah,
shouldn't
you
because
be a
they
know,
have
problem.
it all
I
of them. That's why they have so many buttons.
I feel like nowadays, like today, like you don't need all of those variants. Like you can play a little bit with the toggles and with Figma,
Yeah,
like Figma things. You don't need to build like all of them as almost as a static thing.
yeah, but like you usually you need it for documentation. You don't need it for the system itself. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
am.
yeah.
That's the thing. Like what I find it is that maybe this is a system that has been evolving for a while. They didn't really update it with component properties
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
variables, as many people do.
yeah.
Like they are not the only ones. I know too many
Yeah,
teams who
yeah, for
haven't
sure,
caught
for
up to the
sure.
latest updates. We just
Yeah.
are the geeks here, and
Yeah,
we're
for
talking
sure, for sure.
we're talking
And
trash. But
also because people use it as a documentation support at Figma
yeah,
visually, like how it would look like.
exactly.
So it's very interesting
It
to
depends a
see it.
lot
For
on the decisions
instance,
that you made in your team. But yeah, by the way,
yeah,
Gonzalo Diaz said they should throw a dot or underscore in front of the name to avoid publishing the deprecated ones. Yes, in the past, nowadays, not actually needed if you know what you want to publish or not, because before that was necessary because there was no way to using the UI control what you were publishing. Now you can, right? Like you can select if you want to publish just one button on the right side panel on the properties. You can select if you want when you go to the publish library, you have a modal where you can select all the components that you want to publish or not. So I would say yes, it's a shortcut, but at the same time not really necessary, and maybe it's more about the documentation being more focused on clarity. For example, using the dot on a component puts the position of the component on the alphabetical order of the system somewhere else. That type of stuff can be confusing. And then Elena was saying that links as objects can be useful to build, for example, breadcrumbs. Honestly, yes, but at the same time, for me, for example, if you're gonna build a breadcrumb, which is essentially text/text dash, you don't really need a component for that. You can use the same text or a text box or a simple text component with the styles of a link rather than having a underlined link thing. I don't know.
yeah. Another part that's very interesting when you see a big design is to have patterns or models, and they have this huge merge request, which is basically their big main thing that they do. And it's quite interesting to see how complex and how many things they have already done to just use, ready to use. So it's interesting. Also, searching, for instance, this would be very interesting to have it documented here. So maybe we can start to build it and we can explore at the same time, right? So maybe this would be a navigation, this part, I think, the more darker one. Also, I wanted to share that another dilemma on having variants or not variants documented on Figma
Mhm.
is that when you're using modes, for instance, in case people are not using with variables, it's still a very fresh thing. But I think the pain point of using modes and in variables is that when you're using modes, you cannot see how the variant will be, for instance, on dark mode. So people are missing it to have it a variant on Figma because of documentation wise, because it cannot preview it how it would be. So I think it's an interesting dilemma with modes. Yeah. Hopefully we will catch a design system that will have modes, but maybe that will take 6 months for us to catch up, perhaps someone that is using it already.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
use modes, but it's still very simply.
Yeah, yeah, it's still very
What
fresh.
yeah, when I have more than just the basics of all of those things, uh, I'll actually like try and share it somewhere here. But
Good.
we already use modes for stuff like density and color, not just like color being the basic, but not just color. Using density, which is fun, allows us to build a design system that works for multiple types of platforms without actually needing to create multiple components, for example. The moment that we have typographic variables, honestly, I'm gonna stop using styles on a lot of stuff and things like that, because if we can assign
Yeah,
those
yeah,
variables,
yeah. I'm also
I'm just
very
gonna use that.
anxious about it.
And
So very
we're
anxious about
already creating library and mode dependent libraries. Like, for example, we have illustrations that have 2 versions of light mode and 2 versions of dark mode. So we have a library which is a core library for the whole brand, where we select if we want light or dark mode, and then in the illustrations we have light, light 2, dark, dark 2 modes,
So
and it allows us
fun.
to play around with our illustrations in all of those variations really fast with just a few clicks, which is interesting.
Amazing. So I think I found another, even though that is deprecated. So I don't know, but maybe should be this one. But has a lot of themes. I'm so happy to see all of these changes. They have so many colors. I wasn't expecting this.
But dark mode isn't it, right? Like
No,
it's like
no,
what? It's blue? No, it's not blue.
no. It's probably not this
It's
other,
not gray.
but I didn't find. Yeah,
It's none of them. It's none of them.
They don't have it.
but
Whoa,
I
whoa, whoa, whoa,
tried
whoa,
to
whoa.
search it.
Light
Oh,
gray is
did you find
breaking.
it?
No. Light gray is breaking clearly because some of the colors are not
Um,
changing. So
Mm,
that's also interesting to see.
yeah.
So the light colors are actually applying well, but some things actually don't change with the color, so it's looking kind of weird. But
Okay.
we can just use
Interesting.
dark mode as a representation, right? And then
Yeah. Maybe we can use this one.
we can use the
Maybe search
badge on the
bar.
logo, so that should be fine.
They probably have this column, perhaps called, I don't know, sidebar? Let's see.
Ooh,
Sidebar.
color header deprecated, color theme deprecated, everything is deprecated.
It's the topic of this session, without even knowing, right?
So
Okay.
Marcelo, someone on the chat just went, Marcelo, my guy, and it's someone called UX Art. I don't know who they are, but just letting you know so that
Great
you're
name,
aware that you
UX
have
Art.
fans. You have a fan over there.
I am his guy.
You're this guy. Okay, so
Yeah,
we found headers,
not
we
sure
found
this
side
is-
navigations, sidebars.
it's the
But
most
some components
similar.
like I can't find.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. When we try to do these things, we double check, and some of the things, whether they're not
It's-
public or they're not updated, we discover a lot of things like that.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of stuff that they still haven't updated in the system. So,
Yeah,
but
and
it's
also,
the most fun is to try to
ah,
find what are the stuff that works, right?
yeah.
So this is a
But
table,
even
right?
inside of the nest components are working okay, which is nice. If I expand it or just put it default, it's great. I was just, at least this one with an error, I don't find it. So let's just stick with this.
Text and icon. Booyah!
Mm,
I found it.
okay.
And then
Nice.
these ones should be aligned to the right. I don't know if that's like on the settings or if there's something. Ooh, that one is mixed, so I can do it.
Mm.
No.
Even this button with this type of text that I'm not recalling the name, but
Mhm.
it could be interesting to see if they have a change on the text.
My thing is, yeah, there you go. The way that they have like alignments and everything, it's not actually making sense to me.
Mm.
Yeah, because like the cells, for example, the last update thing, you would have to break the component to use it, because there's no way to do this without breaking the component.
To be aligned on the other
yeah.
side? Yeah,
Yep.
because it's not responding. Yeah. Oh, sad.
Maybe there is, but I need to do something like I need to come to all of these and
Yeah.
manually change them instead to be hug,
Even still, when you
and
try
then the
to at least align the text, it's
needs
not
to be
working.
hug. So the text is hug.
I don't have the
The
font. Shit.
base body cell. Let's see. Woohoo! Trying to break components. Let's go.
This is also a very interesting dilemma for me, which is making tables or rows in general, because it's a very complex component. Like if you want to guarantee to be very good at scaling and do
I'm so
multiple
mad right
things,
now.
like you are, yeah. For instance, this one that it's so simple to put the text on the right side. If it's not well built, you cannot
Something
do
broke.
it.
Something broke.
I know.
broke.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it. I saw it.
What? I'm so confused right now. Okay, I'm just gonna restart these because I'm breaking them all over the place.
Right. Raise tickets.
Okay.
Raise tickets for them.
Yeah, to go on the first
Okay,
on the
so
first page.
I'm just gonna do a little bit of a reset. I'll changes and everything, but we actually have Michelle saying, guys, how do you use icons in the components? I found it so hard to find everything that I want, and I always have to go back to the icon variants because I don't remember the name I put. Here's the thing, don't do variants for icons. Don't do variants for icons. So I don't know if these guys, do they have any icon folder or something like that over here on the pages?
The icons that are attached to a different file, I guess.
Okay, so the icons are not coming out of here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to close to you guys just so I can explain how I would do it just while you build, and then I'll do the reveal of what you guys have been building. So for icons, using variants is the worst option because you lose visual access and you lose searchability. So if you want to build icons into the systems, just use the plain old multi-component option because it's what's going to be best for you. So I'm going to just open a little plugin that I love, which is Lucid Icons. I always say this: if you're building an icon library, don't do variants because it's going to be a nightmare to get there. For example, let's say that I want the alignment thing, so left, bottom, top, whatever. Like, these already come with names, so I don't really have to worry about it. There's two ways for you to do that if you don't remember how it was done, because it was how we did it in the past. You can rename all of them to icon / current name, for example. Just do this, and then create, instead of component set, what you want is to create multiple components. What's gonna happen is, by doing this, if you have a component, let's say a button, that uses it, so I'm gonna create a text box here. Why is my text like going AWOL? Every time that I'm trying to do a text, I don't see it. Okay, here we go.
But if you search for icons, it shows up, Bruno. At least some of them here.
Okay.
Or maybe it's because you're using it.
Use their probably.
Why can't I was trying to use things, but I couldn't. But okay. So we have the pagination item here. Thank you very much for that. I'm just gonna go and break it because I want to replace the chevron with this. It's a beautifully, not so much design component. Let's say that this is the component that we want. I'm going to give it a fill on the background. There you go. When you use this as a component and you want to add options here, the thing is, if you want to change an icon really fast, you can use instant swap properties and just use that because it allows you for two things, right? Using it like this, it will allow you also, for example, if you want an icon selector, you can use a property for like icon on and off, and then you can use the other property for the icon selection, right? So you can say that this is the icon and this is, I'm just gonna rename it select or icon select, Jesus. And I'm gonna do one thing that I love to do, which is put the little arrow here, so it kind of just has a little drop down there. By doing this, instead of doing a variant, now you can turn your icon on and off, which is like one of the most basic things. But when you do this and you do this, you can choose the instance and you get those properties and nested components, right? But you can have a search box and you have icons that are visually visible. So using this, if I went and I did, okay, I don't want this, I want this combined as variant. What's going to happen is now when I go here and I want to change the icon, there's only one icon. And even if I go to that icon, I need to choose from a list that doesn't have any visible feedback. And if you do it by multiple components, then when you get here, you actually have a full visual library of icons, and you can easily search for them. So let's say I want the left align, I search for left, and it will show me. So never do icons as variants, do icons as separate components. Honestly, you're never gonna feel sorry for that. Okay, I'm gonna leave that over there.
Also, just another tip, because I also had that in the past. In case you have any different name that you would like to call this item, you can use the description of the components to put a lot of keywords. So once people are searching, they can find more easily. Let's say that this component, it's called, I don't know, alignment, and then you put align, left, right, top, bottom on the description. And every time that people are searching, whether they call it alignment or align or top, left or right, it will appear on the asset search. So it could be interesting for you to help searching for more components, because there's a lot of things you can call for a component, right? Instead of just depending on one name. Yeah, just a good tip, I think, for you.
Okay.
Guys, my camera, I dropped. And
you dropped, so I have some technical difficulties. I'm trying to fix them. Give me a second. But you guys can keep going on Figma. I'm just going to start following Raquel because it's easier while I set up and correct the problems that we just had.
Yes, for some reason, my Figma got 1 second. I don't know why he's not responding. Just give me 1 second.
Everything went down. The internet broke.
They got intimate. Like, it's too much information. But let's just open and close and open again. So, because I was replacing the typography, because they actually say that they use Inter from Inter for Google. So I was just replacing so I could put a more reliable name here, at least trying, but it didn't work. So sorry, I cannot.
Here's the thing I'm going to say. On top of everything that you just talked and whatnot, we are now at 16:43. We've been live for about an hour and a quarter. So I'm going to give ourselves 10 minutes to finish this so we can close up the stream, because people just want to go home. I don't know where they are, but people just want to stop for sure. We've been at it for a while, so let's do it. We already managed to get breadcrumbs, navigation, somewhat easy to find.
I'm wondering about this one. Would it be a toast? I'm not sure. This merge branch, or maybe something merge related.
It doesn't feel like a toast though.
Maybe a banner, right? Because it's stick. A toast is more interactive reaction,
Let's
right?
see.
When someone is, or not sure. Maybe an alert.
Yeah. A banner kind of feels like it, but at the same time not. So if I go here.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's like it's kind of like
maybe we can see it on
or a
the
status thing or something. I don't know. Is there an author block or something?
Maybe merge request. I will see it on that patterns page, so I can see what they call it. Perhaps it's there. So if I go here, because it seems like something like this, widget container, perhaps this one.
Oof.
It's also more or less similar. I think it's a widget container, perhaps, which is a very interesting name. Seems very also personal for them, like a widget container. So as you can see, we're always finding new names. So name the things that make sense to you, not what people outside do. Otherwise, it will get very lost.
It allows us to have title and description. Yes.
Still not it.
But not exactly it, right?
Not quite yet.
I think it's a build component.
We can. Then there's the expanded and not the expanded option.
Yeah.
Oh,
interesting.
Their table doesn't work on auto layout. What the fuck?
3, level 2, level 1.
What the audience would call it is. Can you guys give us names? Like, how would you call this as a component? This one with the Jeremy photo and merge this and that.
Highlight maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. because
It's very specific one, right? It's like for this context, you know.
Yeah, but it must be a component, right? Because it has to be so used on their, homepage of the repository. So I
Yeah.
don't think it's a banner, so it's
So
too
A
big.
banner.
do your
Maybe.
best to be like Louis Uriach and let us know what you think should be the name of this component here with the
Yeah.
merge branch thing, because yeah, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do the I'm gonna try and use keywords that are visible there. If they built it into the component, maybe I can use it. So I'm gonna search libraries for branch, see what I get out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Branch, I also didn't find anything. Maybe
No, branch
name.
empty. Call out. Let's see. Call out.
Ah,
Not a good name apparently because it's not there. Ouch. Um. It doesn't look like the banners. Broadcast message. No, because this is not it.
okay.
This is like a warning. Everything is gonna burn. Ah! Sorry.
It's not also.
It's funny they use the strokes as effects.
Merge request reports. Why didn't it not show? Like I looked for merge and it didn't really like. So that is supposedly a merge request. That's why the MR comes from merge something widget.
As merge.
So there's merge. There's a container here, which is basically merge request empty.
Like
there's
a
widget, basically, I guess. Because it just gives you a widget container, and then you can choose how many rows you want. So it's literally a slot system.
Okay. Yeah, a slot system. Interesting. Okay.
And then this is the MR widget. There's the MR widget expand, which literally is just a line on the side. There's sidebars, but none of these really match that.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. This feels like that would be it, but at the same time it's not.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm just gonna model. Ah, man. It's getting really... Let's see this one. Model here. This kind of fits the narrative. The content allows for like a bunch of different things.
But then you don't have the picture of the person. Maybe I will search for user, perhaps? Don't know. Maybe something will pop in. We have users like this, but it's not it. What?
I don't know, but when I do as backdrop, the model literally creates a gigantic shadow around, so that's fun to see.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like a drop,
Raquel,
like a...
Jonathan Mora is asking, where are you from? I'm gonna say Portugal.
Me? Yes, I'm from Portugal. Lisbon, sunny Lisbon, the Web Summit city.
Guys, I think this search bar is not the same anyway.
Yeah. So as you can see, the most obvious ones are not usually the ones, because I think I have this conclusion, like the more the component is more like very a core of the product, the more specific name they will use, like a very must-have of only internal people will use. I felt that on Atlassian, and I'm feeling this a little bit with this one, like the merge, which like MR, only them will probably would know about this nomenclature. So it's interesting. Very specific nomenclature, which I think it's the key, because at the end of the day, this is for them, right? To build the product.
Exactly.
But it's interesting to understand.
But it's always fun to get... I love getting to this part of the project and just be like, yep, I'm lost. I don't know how to get there, so...
Yeah, they also like have a table, but very similar to this one. So yeah, it's not interesting. So yeah, I don't know how this would call. Interesting. Maybe we could inspect and see the name on it. Just to see it.
If you have the link for the website, I can try and do that. I don't have the page where you got this, so...
Yeah, I found it when I was searching somewhere, so I think I will find it. Let me just...
And by the way, Jonathan says that you sound kind of Latina, and he says regards from Colombia. There you go.
Oh,
okay.
All right.
Okay. Being Portuguese, probably that's it, the magic behind it.
So specific.
So
I can
if you
see
do in
stuff
this
like
spec, they call it well segmented commits.
I can
They call it
I
like
can
that.
probably use stuff like section, title, description, block that comes from out of there. Do a little
Yeah.
auto layout. I'm gonna call it banner. I can drop an avatar because I know that an avatar is available, so I can just drop an avatar somewhere here. Avatars have multiple sizes. That one seems to be like a 48. Damn! I missed by 8 pixels or 16 pixels or something. It's a 32. So maybe here, let's put this in like this. No paddings here. Let's center
The
it.
tables are terrible.
I also really like this labels with the colors because from what I understood is a reflection of the points here below. So it's quite interesting.
What do you
This
mean?
one.
What did you say?
This one, so these colors, from what I understand, but I'm not sure, it might represent the topics here. But I'm not sure if this is
It makes sense.
correct.
It makes sense though.
Yeah.
They have
But
5 different ones.
But this is not a progress bar, so I don't know how would they call it.
Tracker.
Yeah.
They have no. They don't have tracker.
Is that the color? Yes.
Status.
The
They have
color.
status. No, it's not.
Status. I don't know, but I'm not sure if that's okay or right. But for me, I usually do that reading.
I think I managed to do something that kind of feels like that banner, so I'm just gonna put it here.
You always get it, yeah. You always
you
go
know,
for it.
You know that I kind of just go and build the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then, okay, another thing, the blue button means that it's a drop-down button. The state is normal, size is medium. It doesn't have a badge, so it's drop-down, simple. But the color coding and things like that, I guess that they actually build that based on whatever they need in terms of the system, because I don't see any option here. It's like primary, tertiary. They don't really have the color controls here. So I'm guessing it's gonna be something like, okay, so
their drop downs are kind of interesting.
Ooh, base button. So in the base button, I can actually just go and do this, and then maybe I can choose this and put the neutral white. I'm getting there. So what did it say there? Code. Oh, I can't use the font because it's Gitlab something. Great. Okay, no worries. 126. We are like 4 minutes to the end of the stream. I'm gonna say maybe it's time for us to stop and talk about what was that we could actually do with this or not.
I think we did a good overview over it. I think this one was not the most difficult that we used so far. Even though that we felt that a lot of things might not be updated, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. But it's good at least that they share with us, right? So at least we can learn a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly, the thing for me is actually doing this and like being focused on what we're trying to build and everything. It's always fun, but today I feel like we spent so much time looking at their incredibly like strong documentation that we didn't really took as much time looking at the components as in other editions that we did of this live stream. But in any case, I feel like it's a great system. It's fully complete. It's well built in terms of descriptions and everything. Yes, we struggle to find the components here and there, but overall I feel like it's a solid design system. It's really cool to see that GitLab has this type of structure built.
Yeah, I feel their Figma file could be a little bit better.
Yeah, I it's more of a library of components with little descriptions. So sometimes you find that these are better organized. This was very close to what we would be seeing from, for example, Apple, which has basically just components, very little documentation and things like that. So, yeah. Okay. UX art, guys, a question for you to answer if you can, before you go. If you could describe in a few words what a design system is and why they are important, what would you say? And he said, I was asked this question in an interview once, and I want to see if I can, what I responded makes sense. Okay, sorry, I have a button on top of part of the chat, so I kind of couldn't read, but yeah. Maybe you guys go first. I always know what I have as an answer, so.
What is exactly the question again? It was quite long.
If you could describe a few words what a design system is and why they are important, what would you say?
Well, I think from my point of view, design systems a guideline for how you can build your products, and it's important for me. The first word that came to my mind is consistency, because you probably have a lot of people working on the same project, or maybe even different projects built from the same design system, and you have to have some consistency and guidelines, otherwise it's going to be crazy and a Frankenstein all around. Nobody's going to recognize your product.
Yeah, at least I always think as a source of truth, because you can do things in multiple ways on the company, even though it might not be one or two, skins or frameworks, but at least the design system should be, in my point of view, the source of truth of everything that the company uses, and therefore wants to all of them use in a more consistent way, as Marcel was also explaining. So source of truth, like a top of mind description. Yeah. What do you think?
Source of truth description is a good one. I like to call it not so close to like source of truth, because I like the approach, for example, that Google takes with the concepts of design systems, which is it's more about the inspiration for the end product, as in like it's building blocks that save you time, but at the end of the day it shouldn't be a closed structure. And then many times when we have to talk about it, and I'm going to share a slide that I did for a class a while ago, which is like the way that we talk about design systems many times is like it's very much what's happening on the left side with UI guidelines and principles, and we don't assume that those affect the code, but they do. This is a shared language, a shared block of information. So the only thing that I'm against talking about it like the Holy Bible or the Sacred Library or whatever, like it feels like it's untouchable. It's not. It's a mutable document. It's a mutable system. It's a mutable structure. It's just that it sets up the architectural pillars for you to actually build something that works well and scales. So it's not easy to talk about design systems, mostly because nowadays there's still a lot of people who think of design systems very much so as these UI kit type of tools instead of actually full design
that you can download it and they're on Figma and that's already done. But you're good to go.
Usually I would say it's the baseline of your product in a shared language between designers and developers.
Yeah, for sure.
And how would you define it with one word?
Can I use
one
two?
Word. Yeah, I think
fucking hard. Okay,
yeah, for sure.
Before we leave, just reminding everyone again, don't forget, Config, 26 and 27 of June. If you can join in San Francisco, a few of us are going to be there for sure. If you can't, not a problem. You can see it online for free. And then also, we're going to be at NEV this year on, I think, March 25th. But more news are coming soon. They still don't have that much information out, but you can count on, if you want to come, we're going to be doing a demo there. And we're going to have more events upcoming. We already have also very soon news for the Layers Conference here in Portugal. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream today. And I hope to see you all soon.
Thank you so much. You're always a great audience.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.